I've definitely seen like a trend online of, you know, not even just like, you know, in these more heavily monetized sites like OnlyFans, but even like on like Pornhub, where it's like self-made porn stars, where these like women are actually making quite like names for themselves, you know, in those regards. Winning awards, etc. I think there's like Pornhub Community Awards, like all sorts of things.
There's credibility to be had,
big time. And there's just a couple that have really thrived throughout quarantine, I feel like. So it's just like it's like the whole.
Do they have names?
You know how it is. But you know. I feel like it's like, you know, everybody wants to be a professional. It's just like it's a, you know, it's the porn star's bedroom producer. Everyone wants to have a bit of the action.
You know what freaks me out? Because in our old place and in this new place that we're in now, there's like a mirror in front of our bed. And you know that scene in American Psycho where Patrick Bateman's like doing the muscle thing while he's like fucking the stripper? Jake does that, and it really bothers me because he's like in the mirror, winking at him.
Taking that out.
He's like in the mirror. He's in the mirror, fucking doing the muscle thing and like winking at himself, and it's weird. And I think it's because you've been seeing all this and you're practicing so that you can make money on.
I was trying to wink at you.
No, that's weird.
I was trying to wink at you, but I could only do it through the mirror because of the angle, you know?
Weird.
And I wasn't doing the muscles thing. That's just how my arms are.
Keep this in.
Yes. Oh my God, that made me lightheaded.
No, but about the amateur, like the amateur porn thing. I think it's because like with OnlyFans and stuff like that. I think people are getting tired of the idea of I guess the idea of like the jaded LA porn star who wants to end everything because she hates her life. Like people are tired of that. They want to see like women who actually seem to be choosing it or like enjoying it. There's more of that. And I'm not saying they necessarily do, but you definitely have more of that facade when you see like amateur women uploading to Pornhub or like with OnlyFans. And then there's the parasocial relationship element too with OnlyFans where it's like, I want to be your girlfriend, and you know, the interactive element.
I know that's heavily part of the sell for the OnlyFans thing, but I mean, just part of the whole amateur turned professional thing. Part of me would love to know if some of them, like veterans from like, you know, 10 years ago, the Brazzers All-Stars from 10 years ago, if they would be kind of bitter towards this new trend of just like, hey, anyone with a decent camera can just fuck at home as long as they got a nice ass and kind of get away with it.
We need VH1 to swoop in and like interview all these people so that we can know. I
would be genuinely interested. I'm not certainly like versed in this industry or anything,
Says you.
But I would imagine that these ladies nowadays from home are certainly like making at least decent money, probably comparable to what those, you know, the all-stars back like not even back in the day, but a few years ago were probably making.
Back to what Ashley was saying though about the fact that so many of them seem to be jaded and alienated. I think it's because every single form of like content creation in this sort of new media online sort of, you know, climate has some form of alienation attached to it in that regard. Like all of the weird alienating trends you see that people who make Twitch streams complain about, or YouTube videos complain about, or have Etsy stores, or that every single online platform has some form of alienation. But the thing is, porn is sort of glamorous.
Knitting these beautiful socks is so lonely.
But it's
sometimes I just wish I had someone to talk to.
But it's like porn is sort of glamorous. It has this sort of glamorized veneer, and it's also one of the only kind of ones where there's this really heavy narrative of empowerment. other ones, like there are other forms of like empowerment narratives, like you're an online creator, you're empowered because you don't have to work under a huge like conglomerate or whatever. But like I feel like that's not as easily bought into as the idea of being able to make money off of one's sexuality as a woman in that regard. Like there's this really sort of heavy narrative of empowerment, and I feel like a lot of people get really disappointed when they're sort of not experiencing that, and there are areas where they're sort of being exploited. But it brings me back to the weird controversy that's happening with Bella Thorne at the moment.
Yeah. So Bella Thorne, she's like this ex-Disney child star, which, you know, we all know how that goes.
Yeah,
Miley
Disney
Cyrus.
child star is not like a high batting average, like former thing to be.
We got a stellar record here. Britney Spears, Vanessa Hudgens. It's like, you know, every 5 or 10 years another one crops around, doesn't it? So
Vanessa Hudgens.
Another one bites
Vanessa
the dust.
Hudgens is
Leaked.
her leaked nude was like the first time I'd ever seen a celebrity naked, and I was like, how old was I? Like 14 or 15. I remember me and my friend like gathering around the computer, like trying to find this naked picture of her because we saw her in High School Musical or whatever, and we were so intrigued by the idea of like this innocent woman like having a leaked nude. Oh my god. But yeah, Bella Thorne decided to join OnlyFans, and she was quite successful. Like I think it was the first day she was on the website, she made over $1 million, which is pretty incredible. Like that's something. And she wasn't even, her content was not nude photos, which is even weirder to me. Like, I don't know. It's a bit strange because she does have nude photos out there. So
maybe she knows it's not a selling point if they're out there.
It's possible. It's possible, but I don't know. It's a little strange. This upset a lot of proletariat thoughts who
shout out to the proletariat thoughts. Shout out.
We respect you. We respect
We
the
stand.
grind.
We stand.
But yeah, this upset a lot of the everyday women on that website who make a living from there, and they do. I mean, I've seen some OnlyFans girls who have been able to buy houses because of what they make on there. And I guess like the big appeal of the website, similarly to how YouTube used to be before all like the companies rolled in and made it into basically like just basically TV essentially, but like the appeal of it was sort of like it was the everyday girl who could just upload, and you were connecting with this one specific, not an actual porn star, but like a real girl, the girl next door. It was that kind of thing. And lately, a lot of more famous women have been joining, and because they have platforms, they're able to make money like immediately, like in a way where they don't actually have to put in the grind that other, like with advertising, all that kind of stuff. So I understand why they're upset, certainly.
But there's also
didn't they like change the rules on OnlyFans in a way that ended up negatively affecting the proletarian thoughts because Bella Thorne decided to, you know, slum it on OnlyFans.
She decided to pull a sly one, a fast one, and offer like a $200 photo set to the guys that had subscribed to her. Promising that they were nude because the rest of her photos were not nude. She's kind of just doing softcore underwear stuff as far as I know. But she promised that there was going to be some nudity, and there was not. I haven't seen the photos, so I don't know what they look like, but it made a lot of men angry, and so they started asking for a refund. And this freaked OnlyFans out because they're a business, and to have like thousands and thousands of men suddenly wanting their money back, they were like, oh shit, like this is a big problem. So they changed the rules so that this is the story here. So basically she scammed her subscribers and sent out $200 pay-per-view, a message you have to pay to view, claiming it was a fully nude photo set. It was not. So many people requested refunds that now OnlyFans won't allow us to charge over $50 per pay-per-view or get tips tipped over $100. And this morning we were all told that instead of waiting 7 days for our payouts, we have to wait 30 days. The theory is that OnlyFans can't afford to pay her cut, so now our funds are being tied up.
I don't know.
So
It gets a little bit conspiracy there at the end of like they can't afford the funds, and that's why they're not paying us.
There's no evidence
they could
there.
probably afford it like thousands of times over.
I mean, exactly.
Definitely.
It's a huge
the guy,
company with tons of money.
The guy,
Definitely.
the pimp himself, who started OnlyFans, is like a multi-millionaire now, and this happened all through quarantine, because that's when like the business model just completely shot up. So
I mean, I do certainly empathize with the frustrations that these proletarian thoughts are experiencing, because I mean, as a musician, celebrity plays a massive fucking part of it. A celebrity, this is like not really a story about like porn or anything like that. It's really a story more about just how celebrity influences your industry and how that can piss you off. And like, that's completely understandable. I mean, Paris Hilton has a fucking gold record. There was some fucking Hollywood actor that
she makes decent music.
Got I think he got soft cancelled, so he then like transitioned into becoming a shitty stand-up comedian. So I definitely hear that referenced in many podcasts of like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? Do you think you can just do stand-up just because he's a shit actor and he can't fucking work anymore?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, but he's got clout, so he can sell out a room.
Yeah.
So like, he can go and he will do a tour and he'll be moderately successful and fucking, the rest of it.
Do anything for clout.
Do anything for clout. They do anything for clout. Do anything for clout. They do anything for clout. Do anything for clout.
Clout rules everything around me, mate. That's like the whole like ethos of this like specific period. Like clout is like it's more important than money, because money inevitably leads from clout. But that's the thing that most people are concentrating on.
I swear
Anyway.
I saw someone say that she's claiming she did it to research a role, which is so fucking funny to me. Like, I mean, it's not funny because she's... It's funny in like an outrageous way. Like, imagine affecting like disenfranchised like sex worker women all over the world because you wanted to research a role. That's
But she's not even like a good actress. She's like a Disney Channel actress. So like, where is this like Christian Bale method acting? Like, I'm working on my technique. Ooh. It's like Robert Downey Jr. in like fucking...
It's a Pornhub role.
Pornhub role. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know, maybe I sound like a boomer or whatever, but I just feel like it's just more evidence of like all the weird like ahedonic fucking sexual pathology that's like in the world at the moment, especially the whole thing to do with like the way that OnlyFans kind of encourages this sort of parasocial relationship, and that's why it's sort of kind of blown up in quarantine, because obviously there are a lot of people who are feeling lonely and who like to sort of feel that parasocial relationship with the people who they support in that regard. And then there's also the fact that like there's like the people who are disenfranchised sex workers who are on the site, who are using it to make money for their families and blah, 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 and to like live a decent quality of life and blah, blah, blah. But then there's also the fact that, there are people who have more privilege who don't have to suffer any of the negative consequences that are necessarily associated with being a sex worker, and can just swoop in and swoop out as they please. Like, if you're already a celebrity, you can do that, and that's like your edgy phase, and then you can fuck off, and all the stigma sort of washes off of you.
It's an experiment for her. It's an experiment for her, and that's
a nice $1 million payday experiment.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty indicative as well of like the type of decision making that makes us not be able to have any nice things or just be able to survive very easily. Where it's like, if this was a pattern they could see amongst lots of high profile, OnlyFans content creators, where they were making these false promises and cashing in on money that was trying to get refunded. And they're like, oh, well, this is obviously a problem. We need to obviously change the system. And then he's like, yeah, okay, so that decision would make sense. It's like, we have this one very high profile person that has completely fucking abused the system. okay, well, instead of banning her and talking to her and doing the rest of it, let's change the entire system for everyone, because obviously everyone's a fucking grifter, so none of you can have nice things. It's like, it's the same fucking bullshit logic that like boomers use around even stuff like fucking benefits and shit. You're just like, people should have benefits so they don't starve and die. And you're like, well, there's going to be grifters and they're going to fucking abuse it and all of them are going to grift it and then no one will work and then we'll live in a hopeless society.
But like, what about the whole like bathwater situation with that other gamer girl Twitch stream?
Delphine.
Yeah, the whole bathwater situation, because this is like yet another sort of controversy that's like broken out of like the weird sweaty recesses of the internet into like mainstream conversation. And that was one of the first ones that I ever sort of caught my attention, was the whole bathwater thing. And people were sort of demanding that she be taken off of Twitch for exploiting the men and for.
I think this was actually I think it was Patreon they were trying to get her kicked off of, because okay, so Belle Delphine was like a big e-celeb. She disappeared for about 4 months while OnlyFans was actually kicking off. And then there was actually a similar controversy when she started her OnlyFans, because they were all like, she's taking away. But oh shit, what was I going to say? Yeah, the bathwater thing. Yeah, people were so mad about that. And I really don't understand why, because anyone who is fucking stupid enough to pay for some e-girl's bathwater, I don't care. I don't care about them losing their money at all. Like, I seriously don't. Like, you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes, and that is your stupid prize.
I remember on Reddit, there was like all of these women who were posting things where they were breaking up with their boyfriends because they like looked in the mail and he had ordered Belle Delphine's bathwater, and he was like, it was just a joke, babe. I was just ordering it for a joke or whatever. And like, if we're at the point in our culture where the people are willing to commodify even the most like ridiculous, like base things in that way, it just I don't know, it freaks me out. It's not the kind of thing where I'm like, oh, you deserve to have your money taken, fuck you, you're an idiot neckbeard. It's like, what's wrong with you and how can we get you help? Like, that's the kind of thing that goes on in my head.
The telltale signs for this were all there like 15 years ago though. Even I remember like when 40-Year-Old Virgin came out, that must have been like 2005. Like, even the concept of eBay and selling your things online, just things, not your bum or like anything else, but just your things. Like, that was weird at the time. That's how far we've come. But like, you would hear stories about people that had like, trash hunted outside of Britney Spears' house and gotten like, a tissue or a fucking piece of an apple that she'd eaten or something, and it's sold for thousands of dollars on eBay for some fucking mug that's like going to pay thousands of dollars for a used fucking whatever from some celebrity. So you knew that these people existed, but now there's just like, the media just kind of wants you to cultivate this relationship more with people now, so that it's instead of like people having to hang around outside the fucking bins, they would just sell you the fucking bathwater. Do you know what I mean? So like, it's just, we saw this coming. I feel like we saw it coming.
And I feel like it comes from above. It doesn't necessarily, it's not that like Belle Delphine came up with this bathwater scam and it's this totally fucking insane thing that happened out of nowhere. No, like, these large companies who profit off of this stuff have done everything they can to create narratives where these types of things will happen. Like, your Bella Thorne showing up on OnlyFans, don't tell me that's not one of the goals of OnlyFans, to bring in a huge name that makes over $1 million in a day. That's ridiculous. The idea, that's also why I think that sort of conspiracy theory at the end is probably not true. That's exactly what they fucking want. They want that kind of money pouring in.
You know who else is on OnlyFans?
Who?
Elysion.
Oh God, who wants to see that fucking little boy wave his chode around? Like, who's paying money for that shit?
I know he's on Cameo, but I want to see No Neckhead on OnlyFans.
Oh no, there are loads of people. There are loads of women from 90 Day Fiancé who have decided to transition to being OnlyFans people as well. There was the famous one with the girl.
I'm sure that's not crazy in any way.
But yeah, there's that one girl who went to Australia who now has an OnlyFans. Like loads of them have been on. It's been trending on Twitter whenever they've like started an OnlyFans or whatever. But it seems to be the thing that people do when they get sort of a modicum of clout that they want to monetize. And I feel like OnlyFans is a way of monetizing clout. Like even this week alone, there was a woman who's like on Love and Hip Hop, and she basically did this whole hostage video basically where she was like, she posted it to social media and she was like, I'm being kidnapped, oh help me, I'm being kidnapped. And then turned out it was an ad for her OnlyFans. And then when people, and she was somebody who's not that famous, but she had like a little bit of clout that she was trying to monetize through OnlyFans. And when people rightly so called her out on it, she then was like, oh, I'm trying to raise awareness about human trafficking. It was a sketch for me to raise awareness about human trafficking.
That is genius PR. Let's take a moment to just appreciate how well that's constructed.
That person, like, let's go ahead and say, like, that person is like an entire PR team in one person.
Oh my god, the plan B was just ready to go out the gate. Like I was just obviously raising awareness about human trafficking. This is just such a terrible crime. Obviously, Ghislaine Maxwell in the news right now. This is why I'm trying to, raise awareness about this kind of thing.
Do you support child trafficking? Is that what you support?
So you think that child trafficking is a good thing as you advocate against my advocacy against it?
Just like when Snoop Dogg was caught with like some 19-year-old Instagram thought, and he was like, I was filming a documentary called Clout Chasers. It's like, Snoop Dogg, you are too grown. You are too grown for that shit. Like, what are you doing?
That's what I love about him.
What OnlyFans really is a way for people to monetize clout. And especially if their clout is attached to... Well, not just that, but also if their clout is attached to something that isn't necessarily really a career making kind of thing. Like a lot of the people who do it are people who are not necessarily having successful careers or who are sort of trying to capitalize on some form of 15 minutes of fame, whether that be, her ex-Disney fame, because I know she's not really had any major roles since then, or people who have been on reality TV that are looking to sort of extend the sort of relevance they have from reality TV in order to make money. Loads of people do it I've seen people who maybe had a tweet go viral, and then the next thing you know, they're like, here's my OnlyFans. And it's like, really? It's like, really? Come on. Like, it's now kind of a new way that's sort of being presented to especially women to sort of monetize whatever like little clout they have. And for some people it works. And for some people it doesn't. It's just one of those like things that we have to deal with in like capitalism and one of the things that's there. But anyway, welcome to Low Society. Please be sure to give us money on our OnlyFans. Jake has lots of cute butt pics that I've been taking. It's like 2 eggs in a hanky, adorable, tight little
all
English
kimono
buns.
Oriented.
All kimono oriented. Tight little English buns. If you got a few dollars to throw our way, we appreciate it. Go defend us from haters on Reddit. If you're listening on fucking iTunes, then please leave a 5-star rating. Leave a comment. Share the podcast. Interact. We love to hear from you.
Also go to lowsociety.net and pick up your vitamins and nutrients. We've also got this amazing new fortress that you can set up in your backyard for when the apocalypse happens. Got a case for all of your guns.
I feel like we should actually start selling vitamins and nutrients and like prepper kits.
Vitamins.
Get
it straight.
Because I actually have like a pretty good regimen. I actually have like a pretty good regimen of vitamins that I take and nutrients that keep my skin and hair healthy. So maybe I'll like maybe we should actually start doing it. I've been trying to convince Jake to take vitamins, but he feels like he's too much of a big man for it.
Look, I told you Herbalife is an MLM and I'm not going to buy into, Angie. Okay.
And she's been
It's
posting
fucking-
about how free it's making her.
Listen, yeah.
I get
It's
so much time to
quarantine.
myself that I didn't have before.
Listen, yeah, it's fucking 2020 coronavirus. The bitch gotta eat. Buy my Herbalife. Buy my supplements.
Stay-at-home mom to Jake.
Naboo needs his mommy around. Naboo needs someone to protect him.
Herbalife, self-empowerment through nutriums.
I'm trying to monetize my clout here in a way that doesn't involve me getting my tits out. So stop judging, you judgy motherfuckers. Shush.
I
Anyway.
don't think that Herbalife like says that you can't do that to sell Herbalife. I'm just saying.
I think a lot of them do that, actually.
Really?
Do they? Are they like?
That's the whole Instagram, the whole Instagram model thing. A lot of the time is a lot of them are pushing these MLM shit.
Well, looks like I'm a business genius.
Well,
Yes.
well, I believe that anyone who has a small modicum of clout and misuses it should be cancelled. But apparently Trump doesn't. And that's kind of one of the subjects we wanted to talk about today. Trump came out pretty hard against cancel culture.
Americans are exhausted trying to keep up with the latest list of approved words and phrases and the ever more restrictive political decrees. Many things have a different name now, and the rules are constantly changing. The goal of cancel culture is to make decent Americans live in fear of being fired, expelled, shamed, humiliated, and driven from society as we know it. The far left wants to coerce you into saying what you know to be false and scare you out of saying what you know to be true. It's very sad. But on November 3rd, you can send them a very thundering message they will never forget.
I thought it was a genius way of sort of reverse engineering liberal cynicism against itself, basically. It just seems as if the liberal left just keeps writing all of these blank checks that the far right are just sort of cashing in. And, you know, there was a recent poll by, was it YouGov who did it?
YouGov did it.
Yeah. It basically sort of was kind of a barometer for how important people in America think cancel culture is. And it was overwhelmingly obvious that
majority believe that it is a big problem.
A big problem. And the reason why, and the thing that annoys me is that the left constantly denies that it exists or deflects, or they minimize it and say it's not something that real people care about. But the thing that Trump sort of emphasized in his speech was the way it was being weaponized against workers specifically. And I think that that's the reason why people care so much about cancel culture, because it's something that is sort of, it's a punitive kind of discourse that's being weaponized against workers and people who are in jobs. And that's something that would concern anyone on a political, no matter where on the political spectrum they are.
But I feel like it's also part of that like political illness of like, oh, you're a Trump supporter. That means I don't want to like talk to you or fraternize with you or even be in the same room as you. And like, it's such like a liberal disease. And like, that's why I love the new season of, what's it, Curb Your Enthusiasm? Because Larry David basically made that joke of every time that someone that he doesn't want to go to lunch to makes an appointment with him to go to lunch to, he'll agree to that, but then he'll come just wearing a MAGA hat, and they'll immediately arrive and be like, yeah, I got to pick up my kids from, bye. And just like leave.
If you ever want a booth to yourself in a restaurant, go in like some liberal city or whatever, just like put a MAGA hat on and everyone will clear.
It is really
literally. But yeah, I mean, it is that kind of annoying thing where the issue around job insecurity and people feeling a lack of power in their employment is now being obfuscated by this sort of culture war narrative around cancel culture. But you can't even blame people for buying into that culture war narrative because it specifically has been weaponized in the way that they're concerned about. And I feel like it's super insidious that Trump mentioned workers and jobs specifically in his speech, because it shows how they're sort of reverse engineering this sort of populist language in a way that suits their agenda. And how is the left sort of responding to this? By kind of doubling down and looking more insidious to the public. It's deeply concerning.
The response I've gotten to pointing these types of things out has been along the lines of, well, cancel culture doesn't even exist. And or like, well, cancel culture is a tool to be used responsibly, and instead we should. It's like, no, sorry.
Or they just flat out tell you, oh, stop talking about it. It's so boring. Nobody wants to talk about it. And I'm like, it's one of the biggest subjects in the zeitgeist. But the thing is, they think that left zeitgeist equals the zeitgeist. Like and every single, and it does not. Every single like normie podcast that I listen to, every single friend I have who's not invested, the one thing that's on their minds constantly is cancel culture. And for people to be like, oh, you shouldn't talk about it because it's boring and it makes me feel like it's all you focus on and blah, blah, blah. Well, if it's something that's clearly...
Or, for that matter, you're giving them the ability to weaponize this against our political ideas. And it's like, no,
it's like, you're doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're doing that. Like the people who refuse to examine and address, and it's not just with cancel culture, it's with anything that the left does wrong or anything that the left, quote unquote, does that's counterproductive or politically inexpedient. They just are like, yeah, it's great, it's fine. And if you fucking criticize, it's like the right wing creates a straw man of a leftist in their head, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna do exactly that. I'm gonna do
that's me.
Yeah.
What about it?
I really think a part of why the right wing have built this idea in their head is like just what Jake said. They've experienced having liberals or leftists in their life cut them off because of who they voted for. And basically, I mean, here's the thing. Like there's a shit ton of discourse over this, over whether or not you should cut off Trump supporters, because I've seen many people, many leftist, like I guess influencers on Twitter say that, you know, it's one thing to break a relationship off over differences in taxes or that kind of thing, like, but if you disagree with me on the human rights of others, then I don't want to associate with you. But the thing is that I sincerely doubt, out of all the Trump supporters you could find, that a large majority of them are voting in the interests of reducing the rights of others. I'm not even sure that's a major...
But the thing is, they don't even want the rights for themselves. Like, they don't even want healthcare for themselves. They don't even want a decent wage for themselves. Like, people act as if it's this sort of personal thing where they are like, I want to take away the rights of specific people. And of course, there are some who are like that. But the vast majority of them have bought into a specific ideology that that is also harming them, which is what a lot of these people don't understand, is it's also harming them. Like, I remember I said something along the lines on Twitter where I was like, you know, people should be able to have people in their lives who don't agree with them politically and not be morally judged by others for who they decide to keep in their lives. And then someone was like, oh, I wouldn't want someone in my life that doesn't want trans people to have healthcare. And I was like, that person probably doesn't want anyone to have healthcare. It's not just specifically like
let's think about why that person would not want anyone to have healthcare. It's not out of malice. Yeah. It's because since birth Americans have been fed propaganda that socialized medicine is a failure, that there is no other way than to pay for healthcare.
Like, that you get better restriction of freedom.
And also that you get better healthcare, quote unquote, if you pay for it, and that if you don't pay for it, you're basically being left the dregs in that regard.
Yeah. Americans are always so tickled when they first meet a British person and the British person is extremely shocked by how much like an ambulance costs. Like that's thousands of dollars if you're uninsured. If you get into a car wreck and you are broke, you are now in debt. Like you're going to be in a hospital bed. You could look like fucking mashed potatoes, and you'd be in debt. Like it's sick.
It's fucked up.
I mean,
yeah.
you know, if you're going to be a reckless person and get in a car crash, then you should be a reckless potato in
That's
debt.
it, though,
That's
isn't
quite
it?
obvious.
That's
isn't
exactly it? The personal responsibility bullshit.
Yeah.
That's exactly fucking it. That's what it is. And that's part of the narrative that has to be seated around all of it. It's not just that they're like, private healthcare is better. Private healthcare is freedom. Private health. They're also telling you in all aspects of your life, anytime something goes wrong for you, it's your fucking fault.
Exactly.
You piece of shit.
Exactly.
And you deserve to pay for it.
Exactly. Back to the whole Trump thing, I feel like cancel culture is the way that liberals do the personal responsibility bullshit, basically. And it was very interesting to sort of see Trump do this litany against cancel culture and sort of was like, I'm the one who is here to protect your right to freedom of thought. I'm the one who's here to protect your right to freedom of speech. And I'm also here to protect you from the, he specifically was talking about how the left wants to destroy institutions and take away people's jobs for not believing things. And like, he also talked about
They use all these weird words that are constantly changing.
Yeah, he also
the definition, like it's literally a Patton Oswalt bit, if you remember.
Yeah, but not all of what he's saying is wrong, though, which is why I don't think it's necessarily fair to like completely satirize it and dismiss it. Because one of the things he was sort of saying is forcing people to say things that they don't truly believe, and I feel like the left does that, and it's really not politically salient to do so. I feel like it's important to challenge incidents of bigotry when you see them, but demanding that everybody agree with you philosophically or else it's bigotry is never going to work for you because it's totalitarian to do so. People are entitled to their own private.
And it's unconvincing. And
it's
like
unconvincing.
If your priority is to convince people, and so many of these people, that is exactly what their priority is. It is the least convincing method to attempt to disseminate your views, is to try to force them on people. I don't fucking understand how even from like accepting their supposed motives, I don't understand how they think.
But there is a thing that I've noticed is that if you disagree philosophically on certain principles, then that's seen as tantamount to or the same as bigotry, which is this is what I mean when I say the liberal left keeps signing checks that the right wing are just easily cashing in and cashing in and cashing in. And it bothers me that, it bothers me, number one, that the opposition isn't any better in this regard, but it also bothers me that he's perfectly sort of weaponized liberal cynicism and created this perfect sort of storm of culture war that's obfuscating from the actual material issues that people are facing. So instead of people being worried about job, and the liberal left has also contributed to this too. So instead of people being worried about the lack of power they have in their jobs, the lack of due recourse for workers, all the energy is going to be focused on cancel culture and the left, quote unquote, as enemy, which is
because they've made it a leftist thing. Like that's the thing that Trump has so effectively done in these things that this is the primary lie, in my opinion, what he's saying when he says they want you to do this, they want you to do this, the cancel culture of the left, because it's not the cancel culture of the left.
He specifically said radical left. He specifically said radical left and that's the thing, is it also muddies the waters in the sense because the radical left has nothing to do with cancel culture. It's the liberal mode. And people who sort of identify, and people, it's neoliberalism. The cancel culture is sort of, so cancel culture is sort of an offshoot. It's an offshoot of neoliberalism, which is what I'm trying to stress. It has nothing to do with any of the politics of the radical left. But obviously the average person doesn't know that. When they think radical left, they think, the sort of rad libs and, radical liberals and things like that.
They get it confused all the fucking time. Like I saw someone, I think it was at the RNC, they kept mentioning Marxism all the time. These Marxists.
These Marxist liberals.
It's like, holy shit. Yes.
That's the phrase they said, Marxist liberals.
Oh my God. And it's like, these liberals probably haven't read a word of Marx, but you're calling them Marxists?
These liberals are fucking spooked by Marx. Let's just go ahead and say that.
Exactly. Liberals are just as spooked by communism, I would say, even as Republicans are. Yeah. But
because they can't say, they couldn't use the same language as us and say those rad libs or something like that. Because What, a radical liberal? Like, that doesn't even sound remotely fucking threatening, because it's not. But like,
Well, yeah.
Marxism sounds threatening because it is. Because it's threatening to your entire
Well, it's because it undermines everything.
Yeah, exactly. So like, it's like it's another one of those trigger words. It's just like, you want to say, like, let's find a whole new language and lexicon to start, like, using, describing ourselves from. But then because all of this stuff has been so polluted from 20th century communism and the Cold War and everything else. But, like, at the same time, it's going to be hard because that's what we all know as a reference point. So,
well, yeah, I mean,
then again,
Karl
the reason
Marx is the person who came up with all this stuff that we're using as a base.
The reason, the thing that I definitely took away from it is that it's important to listen to the things that right-wing people say. Number one, because there's always a kernel of truth in there, even though the agenda is obviously not salient to the political goals of the left. There's still nuggets of truth in what the right wing say. And secondly, because they can't help but brag and sort of reveal their game plan. They're like fucking monologuing villains, basically. And when they're right, they want everybody to know in that regard. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes of the left is that they just sort of satirize or sort of shoo away or poo-poo the things that the right wing say without actually listening to what they're saying. Like, for instance, Trump came out again to sort of brag up against Bernie Sanders losing. And he sort of talked about the way the Democratic Party had screwed Bernie Sanders out of a clear win that he would have won if it wasn't for Warren's sort of obfuscation in that regard. And then he went on to say that he was happy that Bernie had been fucked by the Democratic Party because he would have actually been a threat because he had an excited base, people who were actually as eager as Trump's voters are, who also he talked about trade and he talked about economy, he talked about jobs, and he was like, that would have been a harder thing for me to defeat. So I'm glad that I didn't have to face that kind of opponent. And I'm like, if Trump wins, the liberal left has nobody to fucking blame but themselves. And they keep trying to bring their shit to our door. They've given us these two fucking ghouls and they're like, yeah, if you don't vote for them, then you're basically a fascist that likes seeing kids in cages. And it's like, this is your shit. Take your shit back to your fucking door. Stop putting your shit at my door. This is your shit, okay?
Yeah. Don't put it out with your boots, Ted. Call the fire department. This one's out of control.
Yeah, it's because Bernie Sanders is basically the inverse of Trump. They're both, the reason why Trump's base was excited and Bernie's base was excited was because their bases believed them to be not like other politicians, to be not like the rest of them. They both had revolutionary ideas. Trump's one was that he was going to drain the swamp, which, you know, like
he hasn't, but who cares? He said that.
But that was his thing. And Bernie's was obviously healthcare.
Yeah, it's incredibly insidious because this is stuff that the left never listens to. And when we say these things and we're like, this is the way that the right wing is thinking, and this is how we should sort of counteract that, people are like, no, you're a fucking fascist. Get the fuck out of here. And it's like, what do you do except for just sort of sit back and turn bitter and cynical, you know, like it's frustrating.
Well, let's just go ahead and say what they've done to our beautiful Burgess. Okay.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
They've gone after our beautiful Burgess.
Oh my God.
The person who has been on our podcast, the single most amount of times that isn't an official member, is Ben Burgess. Yeah. He wrote a book. And it's a good book about cancel culture and what the left should be doing about it.
It's called Canceling Comedians and it's out on April 30th, 2021. So that's a year away. It's not anywhere near coming out yet. But
that's actually part of why everyone's so pissed off is because they're saying this isn't to be talking about this when all this like Kenosha stuff is going on, the shooting. That's terrible. But like it's coming out next year. He's just announcing the day. It's fucking ridiculous.
Well, it is, and the other thing is, it is exactly the time to talk about it.
It is the
Donald
time.
Trump is making it the time to talk about it. We don't have a choice. We don't get to go
true.
like, oh, we'll totally fucking ignore what the president of the United States is saying at his acceptance speech at the RNC that everybody's fucking watching.
And also what the majority of the country thinks is a huge problem as well. And also
that's not the only poll either. There's other polling that has that exact same result. Other polling firms have performed that same poll and it's gotten the same result. People care about this shit.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, especially people care about anything that could potentially affect their public standing and their work. Because one of the major results of cancel culture is social ostracization and also financial consequences as well. And obviously there have been times where people have suffered the effects of cancel culture and have quote unquote been deserving of it. But there are more times than not where innocent people have been in that line of fire. And all of us on the podcast have been subject to that kind of culture coming our way. And I feel like a lot of people don't empathize with it because cancel culture doesn't tend to happen.
It's not real.
It doesn't tend to happen to people who don't have some kind of public profile, but sometimes it does. Remember the Has Justine Landed situation that happened a few years ago? There are a handful of examples where random sort of civilians on Twitter.
I always bring up the cheating marathon runner from California that killed himself because he was found to have been cheating at a marathon. Like he took a shortcut, and all of these people like went fucking nuts over it for a month, and he jumped off a bridge and killed himself.
The thing about it is once the stain is on you, even if later on it comes out that you're like not a perpetrator of anything bad, there's still inevitably people who want to destroy you anyway just cause they go, it's like, and that's the thing is, a lot of the things that we see bleeding out into the streets, I feel like it's what happens when these modes break off of the sort of heated internet discourse and then transition into the real world. I feel like Charlottesville was that, where internet discourse kind of made its way into the real world, and all the people who had sort of been mobilized and radicalized online then broke out into the streets to try and make what they had cooked up in their little online incubators, quote unquote, reality. And, Heather Heyer ended up getting killed. And I feel like with what's happened recently with the mass shooting at the protest that occurred, the right wing are often more likely to do serious violence because the state sanctions their violence in a way that it doesn't sanction violence that comes from more left-leaning sides of the political spectrum. But again, it's sort of this discourse bleeding out into reality, this sort of discourse where nobody is seeing the humanity on the other side, where the maximum force is considered appropriate because it's a life or death situation. The discourse has now moved to the point where disagreement is a matter of life or death, and people feel as if the other side is this really crazy, insidious threat. And obviously the right wing has more power. And what do people with power do when they feel as if they're under threat? They usually lash out with the most, they usually lash out with the most brutal violence because they feel like they can. And I feel like the left never really looks at these situations for what they are. I feel like the left never really sort of looks at the political dynamics that are involved, especially the power dynamics that are involved. And I worry that more and more people are going to continue to get hurt the more this sort of heated discourse breaks its way out into reality.
And here's the thing, like when you think about, like, again, this shooter in Kenosha, you have to think about where this guy's coming from. Like, that's not to say that there's anything that can excuse like shooting anybody, but ultimately, like, the right, and whether people agree with me or not, liberals are the right. The right controls the media. The right puts out the narrative on the left. The right paints certain acts as violence, and they paint that violence as leftist, and then they say leftists are violent. And so all of these people are terrified of leftists. Now, that's definitely not an excuse to shoot somebody for hitting you with a skateboard, but they're terrified. It is an ideology. It's ignorant.
I think they also really hate, like, not just they tend to conflate liberals and leftists all the time.
Well, yeah, obviously.
But like with Hollywood, speaking of, I feel like they really hate liberals and the entire left, because I mean, think about all the celebrities. Like, I'd say like 90% of them put on this very like liberal affect, and all the media and all of our culture tends to lean towards liberal woke stuff these days. Well, I feel like it would be strange if the inverse happened. Like, suddenly, like, everyone that made music, everyone that was making your favorite things was a Republican. It would be very weird. So to that effect, I can understand like why these young men feel so like alienated and under threat by the left.
The pendulum of culture sort of swings. I mean, now there's a lot more sort of outwardly woke bullshit that's pushed by the media. Whereas during like the Bush era, it was sort of in vogue to be apolitical. But then when 9/11 happened, there was this sort of like protect our country ethos. Because I remember at the Oscars, when Michael Moore spoke out against the war in Iraq, everyone was booing him because the consensus of the nation, because that's what the media does in Hollywood. They follow whatever the consensus of the nation, or whatever the perceived sort of consensus of the nation is at the time. And back then it was, the Iraq war is good. We need to sort of take revenge on, the people who killed us during 9/11, blah, blah, blah. And for Michael Moore to speak out against that was seen as this sort of cultural affront. And that wasn't too long ago. I was a kid during that time. But now that things have sort of swung towards this cynical specifically, because I think the thing that bothers right-wing people is the fact that a lot of the social justice posturing through these sort of capitalist mechanisms is incredibly cynical. And even though they don't know it on a conscious level, that's probably what they're angry about.
Well, I mean, Team America made fun of it so well with all of their characterizing of the,
what I mean.
Hollywood liberals. And that was a little bit early, in fact. I think that people weren't really looking at that as like, oh my God, that's how everything is. But a few years later, that is what, like, they're all Sean Penn, like literally spouting nonsense about being in Africa and claiming that that's like a good political.
I would love to say that I feel like it's because Matt and Trey are these like super, future looking fucking, interpretive artists. But in reality, it's because they were some of the first people to try and get fucking cancelled.
Yeah.
Like, all of those fucking celebrities and stuff thought that what they were doing was fucking disgusting and crude, and also the way that they were taking the piss out of celebrities without their permission and doing voices for them and all of this stuff. They thought they hated them for fucking ages.
Oh, I know.
It wasn't for many seasons until they finally kind of like, got, I saw Book of Mormon. Oh, yes, no, you're actually artists. Yeah, this is great. Like, fucking... It's
Sean
only
Penn threatened them.
Yeah, like Sean Penn lost his fucking
Penn
mind over that.
It was really funny.
It was hilarious. But like that, and those are the actually specific actors that are featured in Team America as well. I think are the ones that actually came after them. So it's
exactly.
It just goes to prove as well that that affect of like being come after in this fucking stupid way when you're like, I just don't agree with you. That then creates the like pushback against this, like, exactly that. Against this.
Those are the only two. That's what I've noticed is the two ways nowadays where people with a monicum of social capital try to monetize that is A, OnlyFans, or B, becoming a quote unquote activist. Because there's a lot of like D-list celebrities or people who haven't really had flourishing careers that are now coming forward as like activists.
They all got a fist up.
Yeah, and like what's her name? The lady, the one from Charmed. What's her name?
Milano.
Yeah, Alyssa Milano.
Oh my
and
God,
also Rose McGowan. And like there are all these like ladies who were like famous like fucking 30 years ago that are now sort of repackaging themselves as activists. And it's like some of them I'm like, why don't you? Some of them it's like, whatever. Some of them it's like maybe OnlyFans may be a better option for you. Like stop.
Maybe you could stop talking about the orange Cheeto in the White House for a couple days and just go take some pictures of yourself in the mirror and get out of our face.
I do feel like it's, again, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because I'm feeling really kind today. But I feel like as well, there's this urge to be like on the right side of history. and to make sure that people know that you are associated with the right side of history as well. Not to just have the position and stand there and be like, yep, I fucking knew that, black people weren't subhuman. Like, I'm not like fucking, but I'm not there like, I was on the right side of history. Like, I was just there like, yeah, because I'm not fucking, arsehole,
I would have voted for the Civil Rights Act if I were a congressperson in the 1960s.
Exactly. But then, but I think like that, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's kind of a channel that's been popping off quite a lot on YouTube recently, is All Gas No Breaks, where he goes and interviews like crowds of people and stuff. And it's always very intense, very insane people that he sees at these public gatherings. But like what you were talking about, like that moniker of clout, and then just the feeling, the need to like not only monetize it, but then like make it into this activism or make it into this thing. Like he interviewed some girl that basically had like a viral TikTok that garnered her like hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok. And so now she is literally there trying to ramble on for like a minute, talking about how she needs to use her TikTok to send the right message and to send a good message and to try and fix the world. And if you're sending the message that's not trying to fix the world, then why are you even bothering sending that message? Like,
well, I've been entrusted with a platform.
Yeah.
Big responsibility.
Use your platform for good.
that whole spiel.
I know exactly. Like in my head, I can tell exactly what this person would have said.
But again, I'm feeling kind, so like it's not just a brainworm. I do like appreciate that it's coming from a place of like I'm trying to be a good person and that, but it's also a little bit like I do want to make maybe some money and like have a bit of a name for myself.
Of course, there's a careerist angle to it.
Because the problem is that we have incentive to be careerist about everything in life.
It's because
nothing is not transactional.
Exactly, and it's also because the neoliberal ethos tells us that we must monetize the most interesting or the most compelling parts of ourselves. I mean, even like me, whenever, because remember I did my live stream on BreadTube and like some of the stuff that I had experienced with race in there, and like literally a day later, I was getting like requests from magazines and mainstream media and shit for them to interview me on race because you're a black person. That's an aspect of you that's interesting and worth paying attention to. And like whenever I talk about anything else, I mostly just reach my audience. But as soon as I open my mouth about race, it's like, Angie, you want to come on MSNBC? And it's like, no, fuck off. I don't want to fucking come on MSNBC to talk to you about race. And it's the same thing, when we're being told to monetize these aspects of ourselves, whether it be advocacy or our bodies or whatever it is like that we can use to maximize whatever tiny little moniker of clout that we have. And it's also the same with cancel culture, because I know people who have made careers off of canceling other people. And like I said, even
Capita Fash pipeline.
Yeah,
fucking let's just go ahead and say it.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like, it's like even so you have the fact that people are worried about the impact that cancel culture can have on their jobs, and not all, because the thing is, the liberal left think that cancel culture only happens to quote unquote bad people or people that deserve it, and that's not true. It happens to people who don't deserve it more probably than it happens to people who do. And the fact that people are worried about losing their jobs or suffering social ostracization or any of the other things that happen because someone has been cancelled is enough to give people pause. But people also resent the cynicism when they see people making careers out of cancelling people and using it as an opportunity to cannibalize social capital and also gain more credibility. Like, look, I called out the thing first, and that makes me the one who's the crusader for justice.
It was me who said that guy who was bad before anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? It turned out to be right.
Yeah, exactly. And then they get 1 million more followers, and then they're like, here's the link to my OnlyFans.
Yes, queen. Yes, queen. Can we see your tits?
Yeah, literally.
Again, being kind about the incentives about it, like, it's not, because I feel like some people see, like, you would say, like, people are incentivized to act in this way. It's like, mate, no one's incentivized to act like a fucking dickhead on the internet to try and beg for money. And you're like, well, actually, just wait a minute, because if you all of a sudden just had some random viral thing that went off, it's like very possible that you could garner loads of followers from that and then literally just coast and escape your 9 to 5 and escape the rat race. And that's all I think really what most people at the end of the day are trying to fucking do is just be like, yeah, I don't have to fucking do that anymore. I can just do this shit on TikTok. And
I don't want to think about this shit
Literally,
anymore.
I can just exist and fucking have this thing.
I want to think about this shit that I fucking do on my off time, where I'm fucking snooping on other people's profiles for some shit that they said that I can take out of context. Yeah. I find that fun. I want to do that professionally.
Yes, exactly. And I'm going to start a Patreon where I ask people to give me $500 before I even consider creating a podcast, before I even consider.
I'll do a podcast. I'm not giving you a product to pay for. You pay me first.
These people who make a career out of canceling people, their career is essentially searching for a decade-old tweet. That's their job, is using a search engine, typing in the N-word, and searching their entire tweets.
Searching for the N-word.
And that's their job. That's their day job. How they make their money. And this celebrity said the N-word 8 years ago. I mean, people still retweet that old Kyle Kalinske tweet.
I was thinking of that same tweet.
They still retweet it. Like he said N-words be hungry on Twitter 8 years ago.
He was probably drunk.
And people, the brave soul has not deleted it. He just lets it happen. He doesn't seem to.
But that's what I'm saying. Because we need to be more yes chat about things. I feel like because I feel like that's the thing. Once you budge an inch, then they take an entire yard and completely drag you into the mud endlessly for ages. So you just need to put your shit out there and let it be what it is at the end of the day. And if you're a random person as well, living in this climate is also terrifying because you don't need to be a public figure in order to get drug in that regard. You could say something or do something that goes viral at any time. You could be having an off day and do something that's the picture, the video of those people who were just sitting having lunch, and then these activists were coming up to them and screaming at them, saying that they should raise their fist, otherwise they're a racist or whatever. It's just
white silence is violence. Literally out of fucking white fragility itself. White silence is violence.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
It's
they're trying to have a sandwich.
And that's the thing is, I've been talking about this stuff, for the week, and there have been so many people who are like, well, that's not real. That's a psyop. These things don't really happen.
Yeah,
these things
that was the primary fucking response. It's a psyop. I don't think that's a real. No, it's fucking real people.
It's because people are in denial. Yeah, it's because the people on the left are in denial, and they feel like sort of any form of self-reflection or any form of self-deprecation is making room for the right wing. And I'm like, not doing that is what's making room for the right wing, because Trump literally got up on stage and he made a litany. He made a fucking entire litany against cancel culture that resonates with millions of people who have either experienced cancel culture in the past or have a fear of it meeting them needlessly for things that they can't.
Even if it's an irrational fear, too. It doesn't even have to be irrational fear. It could be somebody who's perfectly safe in terms of their financial stability, in terms of who can actually take their bag.
People are afraid of a moral inquisition that could potentially threaten their social standing and their careers. That's what people are afraid of the most.
And here's the thing. It might be that we're talking about liberals. It might not be that we're talking about the left. That doesn't mean it's not painted as the left by the media. It doesn't mean, if you don't do this shit, if I don't do this shit, if this isn't a leftist thing, it doesn't matter. The perception is that it's leftists. Are you spending time criticizing the phenomenon and painting it as and actually elucidating how it is not specifically a leftist phenomenon? My criticism is always about how this is baked into the neoliberal ideology. It is never about how leftists are out of control. That's the fucking right.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not even done by accident. It's not a psyop like these things, and there's no COINTELPRO, because they engineered an entire fucking system to make you do that yourself.
Yes, it's incentives.
That is
exactly
what neoliberalism
what
has
we were
made,
talking about.
the left do, essentially, is become their own COINTELPRO. and their own fucking psyops,
Absolutely.
and their own foolery. It's like what we've been saying every episode, like, well, not every episode, but specifically this one. Just if you want to write a blank check or just give them the perfect thing to make the fucking left, quote unquote, look stupid, we'll go out and do it. Publicly, we've been doing it like every single instance of that we could. We then do exactly.
For whatever
that,
reason, we've been trained to venerate these people for being brave, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, no, these people screaming "white silence is violence" at like somebody who's eating a ham sandwich. It's not brave. It's bullshit.
It's a brainworm. It's a brainworm that like everyone's got, and it's a brainworm that doesn't just go from like it affects right wing people as well. But it's just a different end of the brainworm. It's you want to stay within it.
The right wing brainworm usually tends to end in serious violence.
Yes.
And that's kind of the difference between the two. But if we want to be able to gain footing in culture and create institutions as well that can protect us from the excesses of everything that's going on in the world right now, then we definitely need that self-reflection, and we need to establish and sort of differentiate ourselves from those who are responsible for the majority of the obfuscation that we're seeing occur. Because really and truly, all this obfuscation does is lend more credence to the right wing. Well, on that note, thank you guys for listening to this great episode of Low Society.
We do have to pat ourselves on the back for this fantastic episode. It's the most luxurious golden episode we've ever done.
We really appreciate our Patreons. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. We love you. Be sure to, do all the things that help the podcast. Leave a rating, 5 stars preferably, none of that fucking 3-star shit. And also, if you want to become part of our Patreon family and you want to have cheeky discussions with us, you want to come visit my Animal Crossing island, which I recently took a patron on a tour of Uwu. You want to play games with Jake. If you want to, just generally cause havoc in the Discord, give us $5. You also get fucking access to our silly bonus episodes where we're even more chaotic and crazy and disorganized than we already are.
I would say that they are significantly more chaotic. I was editing the one where the Friday sandwich.
Oh my God.
I just died.
We get pretty insane on the bonus episode. So yeah, give us $5 and help contribute to our big ambitions. We love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.